go to Sarashima village with Basho. From the book, it's the narrow road to the deep north that we're gonna look at. We're looking at a visit to Sarashima village. Visit to Sarashina village. The autumn wind inspired my heart with desire to see the rise of the full moon over Mount Obasuri. That rugged mountain in the village of Sarashina is where the villagers in the remote past used to abandon their aging mothers among the rocks. It's pretty horrible. There was another man filled with the same desire, my disciple, Etsujin, who accompanied me also as a servant sent by my friend Kake to help me on the journey. For the Kiso road that led to the village was steep and dangerous, passing over a number of high mountains. We all did our best to help one another, but since none of us were experienced travelers, we felt uneasy and made mistakes, doing the wrong things at the wrong time. These mistakes, however, provoked frequent laughter and gave us the courage to push on. At a certain point on the road, we met an old priest, probably more than 60 years of age, carrying an enormous, heavy load on his bent back, tottering along with short, breathless steps and wearing a sullen, serious look on his face. My companion sympathized with him and taking the heavy load from the priest's shoulders, put it together with the other things that they had been carrying on my horse. Consequently, I had to sit on a big pile. Above my head, mountains rose over mountains, and on my left, a huge precipice dropped 1,000 feet into a boiling river, leaving not a teeny square of flat land in between, so that perched on the high saddle, I felt stricken with terror every time my horse gave a jerk. We passed through a dangerous place such as Kakihashi and Nazami, Saragabawa, Takitogi. The road always winding and climbing, so that we often felt as if we were groping our way in the clouds. I abandoned my horse and staggered on my own legs, for I was dizzy with the height and unable to maintain my mental balance from fear. The servant, on the other hand, mounted the horse and seemed to give not even the slightest thought to the danger. He even nodded.
Finally was able to rest.
He wanted to get on the horse. He nodded in a doze and seemed about to fall headlong over the precipice.
That's interesting, yeah? That's funny.
Every time I saw him drop his head, I was terrified out of my wits.
He was terrified either way.
He fell asleep, I think.
Because he was so exhausted, probably most of the time he was walking.
Upon second thoughts, however, it occurred to me that every one of us was like this servant, wading through the ever-changing reefs of this world in stormy weather, totally blind to the hidden dangers, and that the Buddha, surveying us from on high, would surely feel the same misgivings about our fortune as I did about the servant. What? When dusk came, we sought a night's lodging in a humble house. After lighting a lamp, I took out my pen and ink and closed my eyes, trying to remember the sights I had seen and the poems I had composed during the day. When the priest saw me tapping my head and bending over a small piece of paper, he must have thought I was suffering from the weariness of traveling, for he began to give me an account of his youthful pilgrimage, parables from sacred sutras, and the stories of the miracles he had witnessed. Alas, I was not able to compose a single poem because of this interruption. Just at this time, however, moonlight touched the corner of my room, coming through the hanging leaves and the clints in the wall. As I bent my ears to the noise of wooden clappers and the voices of the villagers chasing wild deer away, I felt in my heart that the loneliness of autumn was now consummated in the scene. I said to my companions, "Let us drink under the bright beams of the moon." And the master of the house brought out some cups. The cups were too big to be called refined, and were decorated with somewhat uncouth gold lacquer work, so that over-refined city dwellers might have hesitated to touch them. Finding them in a remote country as I did, however, I was pleased to see them and thought that they were even more precious than jewel-inlaid rare blue cups. Rare blue? Where do you get those? Poem. Seeing in the country a big moon in the sky, I felt like decorating it with gold lacquer work. Onto a bridge suspended over a precipice clings an ivy vine, body and soul together. Ancient imperial horses must have also crossed this suspended bridge on their way to Kyoto. Halfway on the bridge, I found it impossible even to wink my eye when the fog lifted. Mud poetry. A poem composed at Mount Obasuti. Now they're at the mountain. Poem. In imagination, an old woman and I sat together in tears, admiring the moon. The moon is already 16 days old, and yet I linger in Sarashima village. 3 days have passed, and 3 times I have seen the bright moon in the cloudless sky. A yellow valerian with its slender stalk stands bedecked in droplets of dew. Hot radish pierced my tongue, while the autumn wind pierced my heart. Horse chestnuts from the mountains of Kiso will be my presents to city dwellers. Bidding farewell, bidding goodbye, I walked into the autumn of Kiso. A poem composed at Zenkoji Temple. 4 gates and 4 different sects sleep as one under the bright moon. A sudden storm descends on Mount Asama, blowing stones all over me. I could back up and read those poems again. Poem. In imagination, an old woman and I sat together in tears, admiring the moon. The moon is already 16 days old, and yet I linger in Sarashima village. 3 days have passed, and 3 times I have seen the bright moon in the cloudless sky. A yellow valerian with its slender stalk stands bedecked in droplets of dew. Hot radish pierced my tongue while the autumn wind pierced my heart.
You shouldn't read them like that, all like one. You
What?
should read one, say
What?
next poem, and then say next poem. Take a break between them. You see,
Right.
you read them as if they were one poem.
A poem, but I don't even know if there are one or many.
There are a number of poems. Separate, that one.
All right, well, I'll read a paragraph and stop.
Okay.
Hot radish pierced my tongue while the autumn wind pierced my heart.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're different or not.
But
Horse chestnuts from the mountains of Kiso will be my presents to city dwellers.
that's not a poem now.
Uh,
That was
They're- they are, if they're haiku, they could be a poem, I suppose. I don't know.
You didn't finish the book. You just keep
No,
reading.
I'm gonna finish these poems here, this section. Bidding farewell, bidden goodbye, I walked into the autumn of Kiso. Poem composed at Zen Koji Temple. 4 gates and 4 different sects sleep as one under the bright moon.
What he means by 4 different sects?
Sects are like different groups or religions or something, or different sects.
Sects.
S-E-C-T-S.
Mm-hmm.
A sudden storm descends on Mount Asama, blowing stones all over me. That's what was that? Ashima village. Ashima village. That was which trip was that? Just to be clear. A visit to Sarashima village. Okay, dear, that's the end of that story. Any comment?
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah, they're all pretty beautiful.
I like the passage. Can you read the passage again where they passing by the precipice? The description and how the servant got on the horse.
That section.
It's so funny. And so good. So well said.
I don't know how much time we have. I may have enough time.
Right, what else do you have to do?
The passage. He passed through a dangerous place, winding there felt. I abandoned my horse and staggered on my own legs, for I was dizzy with the height and unable to maintain my mental balance for fear. The servant, on the other hand, mounted the horse and seemed to give not even the slightest thought to the danger. He often nodded in a doze and seemed about to fall headlong over the precipice. Every time I saw him drop his head, I was terrified out of my wits. Upon second thoughts, however, it occurred to me that every one of us was like the servant, wading through the ever-changing reefs of this world in stormy weather, totally blind to the hidden dangers, and that the Buddha, surveying us from on high, would surely feel the same misgivings about our fortune as I did about the servant. And that's the end of the 15 minutes.
Yeah, you should begin read it a little early before that when he
We read it
describes
twice.
when he describes the mountains and the precipice falling 1,000 feet
Well, we
down.
read it once.
The